Welcome to Conversations. My guest today is one of the funniest men that I know, at least locally. Um, we were going to do the show in the studio, and it was pointed out to me that it's Fair Week, and why don't we do it from the fair? This is Mr. Chris Evans.
How are you, sir?
Yes. Chris, you and I did a show, Frankenstein, years ago. It was my first contact with you. You were great, I remember, being very funny.
The thing I remember about Frankenstein was on the Wilma stage, Don Kukla, who directed it, had that big 2-ton set on casters. And the casters broke one day in a rehearsal, and they couldn't turn the set. They had to tear the entire set apart.
Did we do Frankenstein in the Wilma?
We did Frankenstein in the
I
Wilma.
had it so long ago.
And the other trick I'll always know as a director now, if you ever need something to look like a human brain, boil cauliflower.
Yes, we had more boiled cauliflower in that show.
Smelled wonderful.
My favorite moment was we had this big neon thing that we had borrowed, to look like scientific equipment.
Yep.
And the last night, Don Kukla is going, now be very careful with that because it belongs to, I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Western Montana Lighting. And anyway, down it came.
Oh yeah, Murphy's Law.
And I thought it's such courage of somebody. He said, well, I got to tell her. And he just turned around. And he didn't dawdle, put it off. That was great. I have seen you in shows since then.
Yes.
I think you've probably seen me in a show or two since then.
Mm-hmm.
I do them occasionally. Let's see. I've always been an on-again, off-again actor, and it's no big deal. You, on the other hand, have decided that you were good enough
way too much free time on my hands.
to pursue it.
The thing that I love acting in this town, number one, because the audiences are so appreciative of anything you do if it's got quality. And the theater in this town, as a majority, has nothing but quality. I don't care if it's, you go to the kids' shows at the Missoula Children's Theater. Mm-hmm. That's quality. The University of Montana, the MCT, and some of the other core groups that are going around. Latest example, what we were just talking about was Swinging on a Star over at the Elks Club, which I thought had nothing but quality. It was fun to watch.
I am out of the theater scene. Mm-hmm. Since my computer and my cable TV, I really, I'm not so sure, but theater isn't dying, at least in my life. So how about filling in my ignorance? What is going on? Are new companies, small groups?
It's been going on for years. The new companies in town.
What's that? The big ones we've got.
You've got the Missoula Children's Theater,
Theater,
Missoula Community Theater. You've got the University of Montana, and you've got Montana Repertory Theater, of course. And those are the main groups. With Missoula Children's Theater has always been real special to me because when I first came to town, in way back when dinosaurs ruled the earth, about 1986. Jim Karen was real good to me. I was out of work. I couldn't find work. And Jim always gave me something to do. And he's been very good to me and my family for going on 15 years now. I've been in and out of the University of Montana for a while. I got my undergrad degree there in theater, and have just recently been asked back to the MFA program over there in directing. And I'm not sure if they're regretting that yet. I every now and then I have an occasion to drive people just a little bit bananas. But yeah. And with the Montana Repertory Theater, with Greg Johnson over there, it's pro theater. I've done one tour with them, and what he has done is I remember before Greg took it over, I believe in 1990, they were strictly Montana, Idaho, maybe Washington, and now they're nationwide. They're nationwide. They go coast to coast.
Okay, I fill my ignorance in now, and for people out there, Missoula Children's Theater, independent thing. It sends children's
It's
drama
it-
around the world
Around the world.
with professional actors who go to communities. They get the kids involved, and
It's
Okay.
an amazing week.
right.
They send 2 people out, say, to X, Missouri, and they have at maximum 7 days to put on an hour-long musical with up to, what is the most they've taken, 100 kids?
Don't know.
Yeah, I believe it's around 100
But
kids.
They make little cowboys and Indians. out
Little
of 'em,
cowboys and Indians, and at the end, communities who don't normally get theater have their kids up on stage in an hour-long musical and with professional actors.
I saw one of those ones. It was kind of fun.
Oh yeah.
Okay, now the community theater is
Separate from the children's theater.
all right.
Same
but
building.
There is some connection there.
Oh yeah. Everything is under the Missoula Children's Theater roof. The community theater, they've been doing this forever. A season of 6, possibly 7 shows. And you want to talk about a great community to do community theater. And, it's interesting over at the university. I've gained a label of being somewhat community theater, and I'm proud of that. I'm very proud of that. But yeah, if you've seen a Missoula community theater show,
Yeah.
Most times they work.
Now, the community theater is something a housewife can go down and try out,
Yep.
or just open
Anybody.
auditions, with a few exceptions to parts.
Right.
Okay, now the Montana Rep Ice, I've been out of the loop so long. That is a professional company?
That is there are 2 professional companies in town. That's the Children's Theater and the Montana Repertory Theater. The Montana Rep brings in actors from, all over the country. They have auditions, Chicago, New York, Seattle. They go after equity actors to come to the University of Montana and do full-scale touring shows.
Who now run the. Are local actors get involved in that, or
No,
what?
most of the time, no. This is normally for equity actors and also students. Greg Johnson takes on students as interns, as understudy,
Oh, okay.
and
University connection then?
yeah, very much a university connection. And what they do, like this next season, they're going to be doing Death of a Salesman and touring that all around the country. They've gotten some amazing press with some of the shows they've done. They did To Kill a Mockingbird, adapted that to the stage, and the press around the country was
Brought it
just-
back a second time, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same with It's a Wonderful Life.
Who does the Shakespeare in the Park?
Shakespeare in the Park is Joel Janke. I believe he's still there in Bozeman.
Oh, so it's a.
Yeah, it's out of Bozeman, another professional company, and seeing what they do,
I didn't know that. I thought it was from here.
Nope. Out of
Okay.
Bozeman.
We've got a couple smaller groups now.
You've got some smaller core groups. Don Kuklitz, what he did Swinging on a Star with. I've got a group that I bring to life every now and then when I want to do a show, and that's Rocky Mountain Way. And also something under the guise of the Montana Repertory Theater is a group called the Young Rep. Which,
Yeah, I have seen at least one of their shows.
and
Reviewed, in fact.
they've been around since for 10 years, which is it's a great life of a show. And what the Young Rep does is there's no budget for a show. They have to go out, and they always have to be in the black. And I can probably put on one finger one show that lost money out of 10 years. And that was a show I did.
Some
I'm part of Young,
distinction there.
yeah, I'm part of Young Rep history.
I saw a show with 2 women.
Yes, Parallel Lives.
Yeah, I reviewed that show. Yeah.
And you know,
I
that's
reviewed it well. I was quite impressed.
it was really interesting because that was the show that made up the money that the show I did lost. And so yeah.
Have we hit the? Is that all that's pretty much going
I
on?
believe there is. You'll you know, there are other groups. There are improv comedy groups that have been around.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That have been around for 10 years, and every now and then you'll have some people who just get together and name a group and do a show.
When I reviewed that show, I made the comment that this show was so good that it's a shame it couldn't find a club or some sort of venue where it could run for some time. I lived in San Francisco for 14 years, and I mean, it was neat. If the show was good, it lasted. You could go see it. You want to throw some thoughts in there on that?
The one thing that these smaller groups are missing is space. The thing that the reason these shows like Parallel Lives or you know, or something else isn't running longer is that we most 9 times out of 10 have to pay quite a bit for the space, and after a while that just starts sending things into the red. The people who have given us space have been as generous as they possibly could be. But we've had spaces like the New Crystal Theater, and we've done shows at MCT, at the Old Front Street Theater, and the generosity has been great. But these people need to cover their rent too. So one of the things that people have been looking for is a space that we can make into a theater, as I've heard it called, sweat equity, make a stage, put up some lights, and call a space our own, so that we can run a show for 2-3 weeks.
Well, you know, it takes a long time for a show, for word to get around and build, and so if you're going to have something like that, you need a place that you can,
Exactly.
you know, let the reviews come in and build an audience.
And the thing I found about Missoula is it usually takes about 1 week for word to get around. And that's just because most shows run about 2 weeks. So the word has to get around fast if you've got a good show. I can go back to the latest example, Swinging on a Star. How many times was that show held over past its original date? You know, I've heard up to 2 weeks past its original date.
And see, I never heard about it until I was asked to usher.
Yeah.
So it takes a while.
But yeah, if there's anybody out there who wants to give a space to poor theater people, we'll take it.
Well, you mentioned the Crystal Theater, and a lot does go on there.
Yes.
I'm a big fan, so I plug
So am I.
them whenever I can.
And once again, they have been just amazingly generous to the smaller theater groups here in town.
We have at least one playwright here in town that I know of who produces his own plays.
We've got a bunch of
I'm
playwrights.
sure there are more, but
I've just recently, in my very early years, I went to undergrad. I went to the U of M in 1984 and met Bill Yellowrope, who is a national playwright, Native American playwright. His plays have been done everywhere, and he has recently moved back, and we've hooked back up together.
oh well, I saw you at
Yeah.
one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing that I've discovered through something the Montana Repertory Theater does, the Colony, is you've got quite a few playwrights here in town who haven't quite been discovered yet. One woman who was a playwright over at the Colony, who I'm currently going to school with, she just had a 10-minute play that won the Humana Festival 10-minute play contest in Louisville, Kentucky, for the Louisville Actors Theater. Kate Hoffhauer, who is, in my opinion, a wonderful writer. She does very, very good work. And you start to get people regionally, Jim Peterson out of Billings. You know, I've written a couple. And I had some amazing luck with some of the stuff I've written. But as time goes on here, in a year or two, you're going to start seeing some names coming out of Missoula that you've never seen before, and that's really exciting. Hopefully, one of them's mine. I hope.
Well, if anybody, it should be you.
I'll agree, and
Yeah.
we'll see what happens.
Well, let's do things kind of backward. How about some of the bio information on you? And you have a wife and kid.
A wife
I know.
and 3 children.
Oh. When did that happen?
We're still trying to figure that out.
Just one day you turn around and
There was a blonde cherub kid sitting there waiting. No, spent a lot of my childhood in Great Falls, and went to high school there, and got into theater actually on a dare. I was a big football playing, husky-looking guy, was tough and all that, and a friend of mine said, "Boy, you really ought to try this drama class." And I went and I tried it, and I loved it. It drove the football people crazy, because what was a football player doing in drama, and actually doing pretty well. Did summer theater there at the College of Great Falls, and that's where my wife and I officially met. She went to the same high school, and she was 2 years ahead of me. And we got together. We went to school here for a year. I ran out of money, and I asked her if she'd like to move with me to Idaho Falls, Idaho. Worst question I've ever asked her. We lived in Idaho Falls for a while. We got married in 1985. Moved back up here in '86. And I went through a myriad of jobs. The longest one I had was about 10 years in radio, which, if I ever write a book about that, there's some amazing stories that have come out of radio, being a midnight to 6 disc jockey.
you're not doing that anymore?
No. I had fun with radio. I enjoyed the people in radio, but boy, I hated what commercial radio started to do. It's all about the money now. It's not about the entertainment to me, And I'm sure you can find somebody in radio who will argue with me on that. But all of us grew up with some great radio. And now it's all about how much money can they get. And that really depressed me. And I thought, I just don't want to do this anymore. I've been a bartender. I've been in advertising sales, which didn't work out because it came back to, it wasn't how good was it, it was how much money could it bring in. And in some ways, I was raised by a bunch of old hippies, and it's never been about money. For me, it's been about quality. It's been about what you want to do. And that's why I'm back in theater.
Why here?
Why here?
I think you're good enough to be big city.
Life happened. It's really interesting because about 5-6 years ago, Leslie and I were thinking about what are we going to do? Where do we go? And my wife's parents passed away over a period of 2 years, and left her and her brother with somewhat of a mess back at home that people have still been trying to handle. The kids came along. I love this place to raise kids. Mm-hmm. I just recently was in New York to watch a play that I had written get done there, and I go, I can't imagine my children being raised in New York. I've never been to Chicago. Seattle's the closest I think I could take them. And I'm young enough to still go, I've got nothing but time. My wife and I have sat and talked, and we've gone, well, I can go wherever the heck I want. We can do whatever the heck we want. And so we're seeing which way the arrow's going to point us.
I haven't kept up on the National Theater singing since the late 70s. At that time, there was kind of a trend for regional theater to become more and more important, and actors could find jobs and work in smaller places, and that New York being the only place you could work was
Right.
starting to shift. Has that continued?
Yeah, I believe it's about the same. There are so many separate theater groups in the bigger cities that you can find work. As you start going to the regional theaters, the touring companies, that's where people are going. You know, and especially in the 30s and the 40s, there's some great roles going out right now. And yeah, that's where it's staying for right now.
Chris, at what point did you decide, or recognize that you really wanted to do this and that you thought you were good enough to?
When it's interesting, it finally came across with a show a friend of mine and I co-wrote about the school shootings that had gone on around America, and that the show created such a stir at the time and was so effective that it finally hit me that, you know, I'm pretty good at advertising, I'm pretty good at radio, but the one thing that hit me was, you know, I think I might be better at this. And it was making a commitment. They say you can tell people who are actors and who are not actors. Just ask them what they do. You know, you can go up to somebody and say, you know, go up to somebody in the theater and say, what do you do? Well, I'm a bartender. I act on the side. No, I'm perfectly willing to say I'm an actor. You know, I'm a writer. I'm a director. I have no problem saying that now. That's when I made the commitment to where I want to go with my life. And it's a real good world to bring my kids up in, too.
Tell me a little bit about Leslie.
Leslie is the craziest woman on the face of the earth. No. Well, she'll say she is. My wife has been, she is also from Great Falls. She has been with me for going on 17 years. We got married real young. And she she's been through some jobs. She's worked for MCT for a while. She was going to be a substitute teacher until the kids in the class one day just changed her mind on that. She currently sells makeup, and she is probably the best mom in our house at this moment. And she is also an actress. And the one thing she's really found a niche in, she hasn't had the time to act that she wanted, but she does voice work around town. It's amazing. One of the commercial TV stations here in town, they asked me to come in and do voiceovers for commercials every now and then. And I said, well, you know, if you ever need a female voice, here's my wife's number. I haven't been called back since. And, you know, and she lords that over me every now and then.
You are in a commercial I saw recently,
Yes,
and I can't remember what it was about.
it's a hardware store, but I always get the call when it's like, let's see, ooh, you want somebody to do that? Well, Evans is available. Let's give Chris a call.
Someone who'll make a total fool of himself.
Oh, exactly.
You know, at the drop of a hat.
Life is so short. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah. You do a lot of buffoons.
I love doing it. You know, drama is always, you know, good to see. Drama, as I like to say, clears the soul. But comedy, I love doing the big goofy guy. Because at heart, I am a big goofy guy. And comedy's been a real good way for me just to let the big goofy guy out to play for a while. You know, my wife keeps saying, Leslie says that she has 4 children at home. And, you know, yeah, I am one of them. You know, every now and then she has to ground me, put me in the corner, but, you know, that's the way things go.
No, I'm not going to go there.
This would be the late night show, all right.
Yeah. Where do these people come from?
They come from.
I mean, do you consciously decide I'm going to do this one, or do they?
Consciously, I am so attracted to some stuff in roles. With the big goofy guy, that is the kid. That is, that, I like being a kid. You know, I can live vicariously through my own kids or on a stage. And I that's where that guy comes from. The dramatic guy. What a great stress release. If you can get up there and they say make the nicest guys the baddest guys. And there was one role I did in a show over at the university, The Marriage of Bet and Boo, where this guy was just the most evil, nasty man on the face of the planet. So first thing I did was I asked the director, can I shave my head and grow a goatee? So he said, well, yeah, sure, why not? I've got a size 8 1/4 head. When you shave that, it's not a head, it's a planet. And it was so nice just to be the bad guy for a while, because if you can get somebody to love you or hate you, that is so much better than ambivalence or apathy, you know. They do, you know, they just come from whatever personality wants to show up. You know, sounds a little weird. Yes, I have many personalities. But yeah, it's hard to explain. But yeah, it's the kid or the bad guy.
Just the two?
Yeah, honestly, yeah. You know, the other guys are always so boring, and I never get cast in those roles anyway.
No.
You know, the last time I was cast as a romantic lead was about 8, 9 years ago. And I was great as a romantic lead. If you like, you know, I had this long bushy hair with the bald spot. So I looked like, you know, a 1960s art history, you know, professor from a university. But the other roles I don't get cast in, just, you know, I've got a unique look. I'm a character. I'm a character actor. And so they're going to stick me there. You know, vocally, I can do quite a bit of stuff. I've got a strong voice. Did King and I over at the Wilma for MCT many years ago, and I was the one guy they didn't mic. The funny thing about that, I accidentally stepped into one part where they did have it mic'd, and the guy forgot to turn down the mic, and I boomed, and I think I took out about 5 rows because the guy forgot to turn down the mic. But yeah, I love being the kid. You know, you watch kids play, and everything, and it's an acting lesson because they're so totally committed into what they're doing. You know, I watch my son Adam play is huge into, let's see, dinosaurs or sharks. It's sharks right now. We just got back from a vacation, went to SeaWorld, and he saw sharks, and just, he's now obsessed with that. And to watch the commitment to which he plays Jaws, he calls it Jaws, and plays the shark is, it's weird to say, but if an actor on a stage will get the commitment that my 6-year-old son has playing with the shark, that actor is going to be brilliant. It's the freedom to play, and if you allow yourself to play, get in the sandbox, play with the toys, then you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine.
I envy that. I'm not one of those sandbox people.
And it is so, you know, it's hard to do. You know, I'm 36 now, and I sit there and go, I haven't reached the level of commitment that my children have when they're acting. You know, my son and my daughter, when they do a play, they do plays every now and then, and for our family, and they're so into it. They're so into it. They make up their own lives, and you see their heart, you see everything that an actor needs.
I'm going to lead you probably way far afield, but
Go for it.
maybe not. I talked to people who weren't there. Okay, like, so I was going to sleep last night. I was talking to you about what we were going to do today and this and that. And if I'm obsessed, I talk to the same person, which is horrible, about the same things, which is even more horrible. But
I do that when I'm walking down the street.
now I asked Joel over there. He doesn't talk to people in his head. Unless he's really, really mad at, one particular person. You go, you son of a bitch. But I'm trying to go whether you talk to people like that and whether it has some effect on characters you do. Do they
Yes.
speak through you? Do you speak to them?
Before I go on stage, I've done the first 2 minutes on a stage are the worst for me. That's when I just have the anxiety. And what I do, and this is, I talk to the other characters I play. I have my own personal support group before I go on stage. I've played everything from a Vietnam vet to an old crusty Southern gentleman, and all the characters. And it's one of those. That's where I get a lot of my courage to step on the stage. I've gone through rehearsals. Gone through rehearsals, done all the dress rehearsals. But once you got a crowd out there, every now and then, and I don't care if you're Jack Nicholson down to somebody acting in, Two Dot Montana. It's one of those things. What makes you take that first step onto the stage? And yeah, I talk to them. There are times where I've gone, I have no idea what my first line is. And, the minute I step on, there it is. But yeah. And it's amazing some of the conversations I've had. Put an old crusty Southern gentleman, a Vietnam vet, a big nasty bald guy with a goatee, and me in, the same hallway before a show.
At least I talk to people who are real.
Oh, no.
You're talking to
I'm
people you've been.
Yes.
Oh.
And it's interesting because with the commitment, you do it, you rehearse a show for 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. And then you do the show for 2 to 3 weeks. That's a lot of time to spend with somebody you're not. And I don't say you have to, but I have to carry that along with me. I can't drop somebody. I love every character that I've done. And I want to make that investment into what I do on a stage. I love every character that I've done. And so, yeah, I'm going to carry a part of that with me for the rest of my life. And it's a great feeling.
Well, if you keep them alive like that, do you remember their parts? How long they're...
I don't remember the lines, but I do remember what the essence of these characters were.
Yeah.
It was amazing. One of my critiques over at the University of Montana a long time ago was they said, Chris, we hate everything you do on stage, but the audience seems to love everything you do on stage. Drove them nuts. Drove them right out of their gourd. But the first thing I want to do with every character that I do is make them one of us. Make them a human being. And when you put a character on a stage, it shouldn't be anything that people can't relate to. I drove Jim Carrey nuts when I did King and I, because I wanted to really humanize. I didn't want to do Yul Brynner and pose and this and this and this. I wanted to make this, in all actuality, a very confused guy who had no idea what was going on with. All of a sudden, the world is coming in on him, and how do we as human beings react to that? And it's hard, Every character I've had has either had just a mean, nasty, black heart, or the biggest heart in the world. And yeah, that is, I want to play what I want to watch. Even to Shakespeare. any character you have can be boiled down to, what are the human qualities in this? And if you play the human qualities, then I think you win. I think you win.
Have you ever thought of Falstaff?
Falstaff, yeah.
You would be
I played Sir Toby twice.
Sir Toby Belch.
Oh, yes.
Those two.
Very
For
Falstaffian.
those who- yeah.
And it was a wonderful opportunity to play. The second time I played him, I got to play him as they set it on a, Bermuda, set it in Bermuda. So I had the open shirt, had the headband, and I got to play the old hippie that I've always wanted to be. And it was fun. It was so fun.
I'd love to see you do Falstaff.
I'm sure it'll come around sometime.
You get older.
Oh, yeah. The gray's starting to creep in right there. The gray's-
It is, yes. Keep up long enough, you can do Lear. And
Oh, yeah. And, that's the wonderful thing about, kind of the unfair wonderful thing. They say men get distinguished and women get old. That is a phrase I've heard, and I went, that can be argued for and against sometimes.
and there are exceptions as well.
Oh, very much so.
Diana Rigg is
Oh, Diana Rigg.
doing well, yes. Love,
Yes.
love the lady.
Bow before the queen.
How can I get you to, can you do some voices or things for me?
Oh,
Get some- I've never had comedy on my show, except in flashes,
Well, I did a one-man show by Eric Bogosian. I've done a couple of those. And, you can sit and go into one of these things where there was got back from New York, and there was this a very confused lady who was going to cross the street and as the cars, and this lady got in and grabbed her and said, "No, you can't do that, And this guy, behind her said, "Hey, why don't you get her out of the street before she effing dies, okay?" And, I thought, there's my New York moment. My New York moment is right there. Another one is, and I was raised on Bugs Bunny cartoons. The 90 minutes of Bugs Bunny in the morning, so you can sit there and do Yosemite Sam. Why for did you put that on my head?
You don't do Bugs, do you?
No.
No?
No. And see,
He's a little lean or something.
and I was always attracted to the characters of Yosemite Sam and Daffy Duck, because
Oh, yeah, I
these
can
guys,
see
the
that.
world always fell down around them, and they went in with the bravado and the guns a-blazing, and they always lost.
But they never quit trying.
No, they never quit trying. There was the one thing a lot of people always said that I looked like was Beetlejuice. When I have long hair, and it was one, "Come for your daughter, Chuck." And that kind of thing. Let's see, some more will come here. Come up with another question. Let's see here.
Oh. You did Waiting for Godot?
Yes.
Someone told me how fabulous it was. And
It was one that that actors have to go through at least once. I highly suggest it. Very good friend of mine at the time, John Brownson, and we were sitting in the green room at the University of Montana one day. John was like, "What show you want to do?" And I just offhandedly said, "Waiting for Godot," and so he set it up. I was like, I was kidding. And approaching that show was one of the most amazing things I've ever done. Just from the sheer magnitude of, and once again, it's weird to say, the sheer magnitude of two men sitting on a deserted road and speaking Samuel Beckett's words. I will never forget that experience. And it was always great because whenever we got lost, it was, "Let's go. We can't. Why not? We're waiting for Godot." That always bought us the 5 seconds to come up with where we were on the right line. Tom Brokaw. I can kind of do a Tom Brokaw. Somewhere in the news. No. Where? Hi there. It's gone. It's gone. Where'd my Tom go? Where?
Go back to Waiting for Godot.
Yes.
That's kind of a legendary part for great comedians.
Yes.
Was it Bert Lahr did?
I, Bert, yes, Bert Lahr and I forget the other man's name. I've heard productions of Robin Williams and Steve Martin did a production of Waiting for Godot set in the Napa Valley. But yeah, you know, historic people have been through Godot. Oh my God.
I think that play is about twice as long as it needs to be.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
Oh, I
good.
totally agree with it.
So I got into it with an English professor, and I finally agreed it had some merit, and he agreed, yeah, it is too long. And
But who's going to tell Beckett to cut?
well, he's not. You know, when I was a teenager, and I never left anything, but I walked out on a Jane Mansfield movie, and I walked out on some Beckett play where they were all in pots with their heads, this is
Endgame.
Yeah, this is not one I'm going to play with too much. Plans for the future?
Plans for the future?
Anything upcoming?
More school. I'm directing twice over at the university. God knows what it's going to be yet.
What are you going to direct? You don't know.
I'm looking at 2 shows right now. They've nailed it. They pretty much cut it down to 2 shows. One is an Arthur Miller piece called Mr. Peters Connections.
Never heard
It's
of it.
a recent one
Oh.
by him, 95. Peter Falk was in it. And the other one is a Jim McClure piece called Ghost World. Jim McClure, Lone Star Laundry and Bourbon and all that. But Ghost World is one of the funniest things I've read lately. A writer in Central Park comes across a character in a play he never finished. And the character is begging him to write a second act because the character, you know, is now just in limbo. You know, and as a writer, you sit there and go, what happens to these characters that, you know, never got finished? What if they came to visit you again? And it gradually drives the writer just a tad insane. But Jim McClure is one of the funniest guys. He's been over with the Montana Rep, with the call-up. That way. And then, you know, I've got all sorts of shows I want to put on the list as we go on. One musical that I fell in love with was Stephen Sondheim's Assassins.
Oh, are you a Sondheim fan?
Oh, yes.
Oh, God, I am
You know,
as far back as the 70s. You know,
I listened to Follies. There was, and I still have somewhere in my tape collection, when they did an all-star version of Follies. And I picked that up, and I still watch it to this day. Just am amazed by that. But Sondheim's Assassins is a musical review of everybody who has tried to or has killed the president. And it's,
only Sondheim could.
And, you know, it's an amazing piece. It's, you know, the phrase, every boy can grow up to be president, has now been changed with that show, as every boy can grow up to be president or be the one who tried to kill the president. And which is, my leanings towards political works are starting to make themselves known a little bit more nowadays. I like to kind of, in my directing, my writing, possibly my acting when I get a chance, I like to shake people a little bit more than they've been shook. And Assassin's one of those shows, a little one act I just directed last year, an amazingly brutal piece about a gay bashing in New York City by a nice religious boy. It shook people. It shook people. It's a show called Bash by Neil LaBute. It's a trilogy of monologues. And I think I've got definite views on the world, and I like to find pieces that I can express the views from. The school shooting show that I co-wrote. You know, I keep telling people I had to do something when now my oldest son, he was 2 at the time, was playing in front of the TV as the scene from Springfield, the Thurston High School shootings, was being played out in back of it. And I just thought the juxtaposition of him in front of the scene just shook me. And so a friend of mine and I wrote a show called American Roulette. We did it through the Young Rep, and we closed it on April 10th of '98. 10 days later, Littleton, the Columbine shootings happened. And I had so many comments after that, that the people were shocked about Columbine, but their first thoughts went to us, the people who were in the show. And I thought that was an interesting way to look at things. But any chance I can have to try and change the world that my kids are growing up in, I'm going to do it, right or wrong. There are, it's interesting working with Bill Yellowrobe lately, because my experiences with the Native American culture has been zero. And it's not because I don't want to, it's just I have never had the opportunity. And so now Bill has been claimed to be an angry writer. His stuff is amazing. But I'm learning more and more. A show I did many years ago called Tracers dealt with Vietnam, which I was 2 years old when Vietnam was happening. And
Don't pull rank on me.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I learned quite a bit from some Vietnam veterans here in town, just about the entire experience. But I take a look at the world that my kids are coming up in, and there are some things that I personally think need to be changed. We can go to the old classics of, racism, sexism, the whole thing. I think, and if I can do something to change something in my own little corner, I'm going to do it.
I find that fascinating because I used to read a lot more. I considered myself more into the arts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was where I sort of centered my reality. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I started becoming more active in terms of, we're going to do a gay and lesbian newspaper. I'm going to change the world, and I sort of left a lot of that artistic thing behind, thinking that it was not where it was at. And what you're saying to me is that you're essentially doing a lot of what I am trying to do, but you're doing it.
I'm trying to marry them both.
That. Sure, that's interesting.
It's and I wouldn't call myself an activist, but I would again, the phrase I've used, I'm not trying to save the world, I'm just trying to save my little corner of it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can do that and change some of the things that I would like to see my kids grow up in, then I'm going to do it. I was recently talking with a friend of mine, and some things I'm very proud of, and this is what my wife and I have done. My kids see no color. My kids see, no race, no sexual preference. And I go, what a wonderful world to grow up in.
How old are they?
6, 3, and 1. And I just keep going to, what a great world to grow up in. I've seen violence against women. I've seen violence against gay people. I've seen, everything that, if I can do this through the arts, if I can try and make some people think about stuff through theater, through, teaching. I'm teaching over at the university. Through teaching acting. If I can, get people to talk, to express. And then, maybe we can alter a course somewhere. And I think if we can do that, we win.
Well, in the days that we were starting to get this gay paper together, I would go across the Hagan Street Bridge. And every day I would think, I'm going to change the way people in this valley live. And very much in what you're saying is that you work in your little place, but you believe that you can change it. Because if you can't, why bother? you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
I mean,
Exactly. And the thing that I found, and this is where some folks and I over at the university disagree on some things. Some folks are theatrical activists with a push. I don't think you can push people into something. I think you can nudge them. I think it's a lot more subtler, and a lot more effective with a nudge. Because
Yeah.
you aren't going to change a mind with a push. And that's where I think some of the radical activism, yes, it brings light to some things, but it also pushes more people away than it does brings them into the fold.
there are exceptions for
And
that.
I agree with that. But, just on some fronts where I'm like, Lenny Bruce said we're all the same schmuck. And that's one thing where I go, we are. We are. I see no color, I see no sexual preference, and I like to keep doing that.
I want to, I was going to make an introductory statement and I forgot. So can I interrupt here? And
Oh, go for it.
sometimes at the beginning I do catch ups on other shows. And we did one 2 shows ago about a young kid who, small on a punk type band and looked kind of gay. And when they had the riots, he was taken in as, and got a lot of hassle. It looked like just because he was perceived as gay.
Right.
Which he wasn't, which doesn't, but anyway. Over the news service I get, there was this week in Tennessee, a guy and his fiance are out on one of these gambling boats on the river. Now there's a guy who's giving people trouble, maybe dope, alcohol, whatever, but comes back. The fiance gives him her purse to hold while she goes to the bathroom. They're with a guy where the other guy is blind, and he wants to go to the bathroom. The guy then is arm in arm with a man going into the men's room holding a purse. And the long and short of it is that the guy gets shot and killed. Not that I'm, you know what I'm saying? It's no difference whether you're a straight guy or gay,
Right.
but it's a message I try to get out to people that it's a bad deal when you just shoot people because you think they are, and what doesn't really make any difference whether they are, and
I was running a
bad world.
I was running a karaoke show down the Bitterroot. That's another job I used to do. I used to go out 4 nights a week and run karaoke shows. And,
I've never been.
oh, in the old days, it was a drunken sing fest. And there was one guy who went off on just this anti-gay rant. And he said one guy hit on it one time, and I said, you ought to look at it this way. In your life, so few people are going to consider you attractive enough to come up and say something. Just say thank you.
Yeah.
Just say thank you. And and see this incident in Tennessee. If you keep talking about things like this, somebody's going to hear it, and it's going to alter the way they look at it. Because what a horrible coincident circumstance that some very misguided person saw. And if you can change a perception, if you can nudge a perception off track, then you're going to win.
I hope.
No hope. It'll happen. It'll happen.